happens especially with creators. And they've grown a newsletter with like 10,000 subscribers, and they've done it organically, painfully through like posts on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. We're getting these subscribers coming through, but they're not actually opening and clicking and buying our stuff. And then we look and we go, okay, so what is different? Like, what's the difference between like a Morning Brew, a 1440, someone that can like scale paid acquisition, and these creators that can't? The honest truth is,
all right, Louis, I really want to nerd out today on newsletters. I know you're down for that. I got a question from somebody in the DMs, and they asked me, what is the best way to get their first 1,000 subscribers? They're just starting out. So I know this is something you've covered in the past. You have tons and tons of ways to grow a newsletter list, but I want to tackle what are the top 5 ways to grow your first 1,000 newsletter subscribers. You down?
I like it. Yeah, I mean, I narrowed it down. I think we had like 83 in total that we'd looked at, and we got that down to the top 5. So I'm pretty excited for this. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
All right, Louis. So let's set the scene. What are the parameters here of this little draft we're going to do?
Yeah, so we're going to get into the top 5, but I guess just to kick things off with it, what we're talking about here is like how to add like your first 1,000 really high quality, valuable subscribers, right? So not just any old subscribers you can get from like buying a list or just like 10 cents a subscriber from Facebook or something. Like, we're talking about this for like people who actually want to build a profitable newsletter business, right? So you want to get to 6 or 7 figures in revenue with this newsletter. It's not just a personal newsletter that you're starting for fun. If that's something you're doing, that's really cool. Grow it however you want to grow it. Do whatever you want to do whatever's fun there. Don't need to follow the advice we're going to share here and the strategies, but this is purely like if you want to build a 6-7 figure newsletter business, what we think is going to work best. And one thing that I think was really important for both of us when we were putting this list together is if you can get lucky, you can probably beat us in terms of like how quickly and how easily you can get to 1,000 subscribers. But what we're sharing here is like stuff that should work every time, right? Where you don't need luck, where it's just like, it's predictable. If you put this effort in, you will get the 1,000 subscribers, 1,000 quality subscribers out relatively quickly. And I guess what we'll talk about a little bit is like, as we'll see, there's no like one best acquisition channel or one best strategy for every single newsletter. It comes down to, I guess, what kind of subscribers you're trying to acquire, what you're good at. We'll get into that, right? Local newsletter versus B2C, B2B, like super niche. So we'll talk through like which ones are a good fit as well, so that you can kind of pick out at the end. Like, you can go through, understand all the 5. So if you don't have a newsletter yet, hopefully you can get some inspiration and be like, okay, like I'm going to start something and try strategy number 3. But if you already have one that you're just struggling to grow, you can be like, okay, I get that number 2 is probably the best for me. Number 4 might work as well. And number 5, no way. Sound good?
Well, number 5 is mine, so thanks. Yeah, and I think like a lot of these, right? The kind of spoiler, a lot of these will work if you have a bigger newsletter too. So this is not just for the noobs out there. This is probably something that you can use to get your next 1,000 subscribers. So keep listening is basically what I'm saying. You're on the clock, Louis. Should we get into the first pick?
Let's do it. I'm going to take the first one. So this first strategy is actually how I started my own Grow My Newsletter. And I got just over 5,000 subscribers in 48 hours, I think, from launching it. So 0 to 5,000.
What year did you start that newsletter? I'm just curious.
That was last year. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know, because I think, and maybe we'll get into it a little bit, but like the ways I started the water coolest, right, like would never work now. And that was in 2017. So just wanted to be clear that this would still work.
Yeah, I think this absolutely, everything we're going to share here, I think absolutely would still work. It does not, you do not need to go back to a time before there were lots of newsletters and like just having a newsletter was kind of sexy and cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, this will definitely work. And so what I did, I've started calling it basically becoming the man in the middle is like how I think about it. And it basically comes down to 3 simple steps, right? So all you have to do is like create something valuable. You have to then get other people who have the same audience as you to take that valuable thing and give it to their audience so that they subscribe. And then the last step that you have to do to kind of close the loop is to promise those people who've shared it for you that you can get them some kind of exposure in return. So that sounds like super vague. You probably can't get like exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, took those down for me, like super valuable. Like, okay, yeah. What does that mean?
So that's like the principles, right? Like, let's get into like the actual. I'll give you the actual example, right? So when I was launching my Grow My Newsletter, which is as it sounds. It's a newsletter for newsletter operators, right? And yep, crazy. I started it with an audience of 0. And what I did was the first thing I did was I went, okay, what can I create that is something that like any newsletter operator would be just super interested in, right? Something that's quick and easy for me to do. A year ago, that meant creating a lead magnet of some kind, right? So what I did was I actually put together a swipe file of like 200 plus newsletter landing pages with like conversion rate data and everything that I just sourced from different newsletter operators. But today, this could be like a tool, a quiz, anything with AI, right? Like you have so much, like the bar has been raised so much higher. Yeah. No PDF. No, exactly. Right. And so I made this thing and I was like, okay, this is so cool. If you have an audience of newsletter operators, one of the things you're always on the lookout for is like, what is some really cool shit that my audience is going to care about that I can share with them? That like I want them to have heard it from me first and to trust me as like being the switched on guy who like gets access to the cool stuff that they really care about, right? So basically what I did was I created this thing. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is good enough. Like it passes that threshold of like people are going to want to share it. And I took it and I just DM'd literally like 15 to 20 people who were in my space who had newsletters or podcasts or just like a big online following of newsletter operators. And I was like, hey, here is this thing, right? I created this. It's going live on this day. It's really cool. I would really love it if you would go and share it with your audience when it goes live. I think they're going to love it as well. It's super valuable. I've put a load of time into it, right? And to be honest, that would probably alone have got me like my first 1,000, maybe even 2,000 subscribers. I bet a bunch of them would have shared it anyway. But the thing that takes this strategy like over the top and like makes it a guaranteed winner is when you add that step 3 of like promising those other creators some exposure in return, right? Because there's not really that much in it for them to share your whatever you've created, other than just that they're the guy who's found cool shit for their audience and they need something cool to talk about, right? And you don't have like an audience of your own that you can like cross promo with, right? You can't go like, okay, you feature me in your audience of 50,000 subscribers, Jay Klaus, please, and I will feature you in my audience of me and like my test email address that I've set up, right? It doesn't really work out that way. So what I did instead is I leveraged the other people in like the other people that I was doing outreach to, right? The other creators. So I was like, hey, for example, Jay, right? You go share this thing. Your audience is going to love it anyway. When your audience comes in, after they subscribe to Get My Lead Magnet, this resource I've created, I'm going to show them a recommendations widget, and it's going to be full of recommendations for the other creators who I'm partnering up with, right? So your subscribers will also see their stuff and subscribe. And I'm partnering up with like 15 people on this. So if you agree to recommend me and to feature my lead magnet in your newsletter, I'm going to feature you in my recommendations widget, right? Which means when these other people who in total have like 250,000 subscribers, who are like the ideal audience that we care about, when they go and share this with their audience, you're going to get in front of their audience as well, right? And I don't know how many you're going to get. I don't know if you're going to get 200, 500, 1,000, 5,000 subscribers, but I bet it's going to be pretty equal if we all do this together, right? And there you kind of like, you create that leverage, right? Even though you have nothing, you can become that sort of like network, the hub of that network, right? And get sort of leverage the benefit of each other's audience and just sort of collect from that, right? Only by creating something cool and being the one who partners everybody up. And I got like 5,000 and something subscribers in the first 2 days just from doing that. I didn't even have to like launch it. They just came in. And I sent through roughly the same number of subscribers back to the other people as well from each other. So everyone was like super happy with this. And I haven't seen a bunch of people doing this. I wish more people did it because I think it would work in like pretty much every single like niche, right? Like you could just partner up with local businesses to do this, right? You could just be like, okay, I'm putting together the top 20 like must eat at spots with like a $5 discount for each one. And you go to those restaurants and you say, hey, you're all included, go share this. And then if you share it, everyone's audience is going to like, everyone else's audience is going to get to find out about you as well, right? So it's free exposure. Like, I just don't see us in a situation in which this doesn't work. And it's just like stupidly easy way to get like the first couple of thousand subscribers.
I may have asked you this the first time you told me about it, but was there any pushback from these people because they're like, why am I sharing with all of my competitors? Because I would say generally people in the newsletter space are pretty cool. We all like, a lot of people know each other, they're supportive, but I could see there being an industry like, my newsletters in finance, people that are a little more cutthroat in them being like, I don't want to give you exposure to my audience.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I guess there probably are a bunch of industries where you may get some pushback on that. I guess number one, it depends like how cool is the thing that you're sharing? Like, do people really want it? And number two, like you don't have to give them necessarily like a full list of the people who are taking part. You can sort of tailor you can say, like I said, like here are 15, like I'm partnering up with 15 different people. And then in each email that I sent out or like each request, I was like X, Y, and Z, where I knew that
Yeah,
those were
yeah.
names that they probably
You
had
said
heard
that,
of.
yeah, you
Yeah.
name drop a little bit. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I name dropped in like in the positive sense, right? So like if it was
yeah,
1440, like maybe I wouldn't say Morning Brew. I would say, I don't know, James Clear or someone else who has like a really big audience, but like it's a similar audience but non-competitive. That doesn't mean you can't work with both of them, right? Like you can't stop somebody recommending something that you've created publicly, right, in their newsletter. Like that could happen anytime.
But I think that's also a good point. I was going to get to this in with the number two pick, but I'll bring it up now. Is you bringing up like 1440, the Morning Brew, and James Clear? It's like I think everyone needs to realize like where you're at. If you're trying to get your first 1,000 subscribers, like most likely don't reach out to them. Like those size newsletters, like try to be realistic here and try to find some folks that are a little bit smaller that are still willing to help out or have the time. Like if you just think about the ask there, there's so much more value coming to you than there is to them. So I would just be careful about that. Like you're probably not going to have a lot of success if you reach out to the Morning Brew and 1440 and like maybe the biggest creators in your space. So again, it's like really dependent on where you're playing, right? The newsletter space, like probably the biggest newsletter is 50,000 people or something.
The biggest one that shared it for me was like 150,000 ish, but they did it later, so I wasn't allowed to count those subscribers till like the first 48 hours count. They missed the deadline. Their newsletter went out on a different day, so it didn't make for such a good like round number. Like I'd rather say like 5,000 in the first 2 days than like get mixed up in like the however many I had in like 10 days. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I honestly like I've got to say I think probably reaching out to someone like Morning Brew or like one of those super large newsletters, it's rarely going to be a fit because your thing is rarely going to be like the most exciting thing that for a generic 4 million people, right? Like that's going to be
Right.
super difficult. But if you're in a niche space, like you have a small newsletter, you're not competition or seen as competition for someone who has like 100,000 subscribers. They're probably going to be pretty happy to like shout out something if you've created something that's really cool. Like, are they going to recommend your newsletter that you haven't even started properly yet and that you have no track record? No. But if you've created something like with my newsletter, right, and if like across like the Sparkloop newsletters and stuff like that, right, if you want to get in front of like 100,000 ish newsletter operators, you come and tell me you have a newsletter where you tear down different newsletter examples every week. I'm not featuring it. But if you put together a swipe file of like the top 200 welcome emails plus examples, and you share that, and
Yeah.
you're not directly competing with Sparkloop, I'm definitely going to give that a plug because it's a really cool thing, and I want people to have found it through me rather than through like the 50 other people who write newsletters about newsletters. Right? I want you to see it from me first because I'm the one that is providing you with the cool shit.
I think it's a really cool idea. Should we move on to number two?
Let's do it. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty similar, right? You run me through number two.
Yes, I would say it's similar in the vein that you're you're leeching onto somebody else's audience, right? You're borrowing some of their clout, and so we'll call this one, I guess, kind of partnering for distribution. And this is something like I've talked about in the past in podcasts that I think there's a big opportunity. There's a lot of email lists out there that are more of like distribution e-commerce list that are not really being utilized for anything, let's call it editorial. So my thought here is, let's for an easy example, let's say you have like an outdoor hunting and fishing, let's call it a hunting newsletter, right? I think there's an opportunity for you to reach out to some of the players in the space that are selling, to that type of audience. So whether it's, I don't know, ammo, camo, whatever you want to do, duck calls, right? Reaching out to those companies and seeing if you can set something up. And again, I think the issue you run into is, well, hey, what value can I provide them? Because I have literally 0 subscribers on my list. So I think there's a couple ways to do it. one of the coolest ways that I've seen people do is basically saying to them like, hey, we don't have a subscriber list now, but we're going out and we're doing this similar play with a bunch of your, your competitors, a bunch of people in this space. What we can promise you is that we're going to deliver you some sort of, ad product in the future, right? And so saying, hey, we're going to either, I've seen people set it up two ways. Like one is just, we're going to give you some ads, in the future, some sort of promise. The other is saying, hey, we're going to start putting it in now. We're going to give you an ad. And the goal is to get you to 500 clicks or 200 clicks. And listen, that may take me, the next 3 months to do, but I promise that I'm going to deliver that. And the entire time, I'm going to be setting up deals, with other folks in your space that are similar to this. And so there's going to be a lot of subscribers coming in the door. So this is one of those things that, it takes a little bit of trust. Again, I think you have to reach out to the right partners, right? Like I would not recommend, again, hunting newsletter. I would not recommend going out to like Cabela's or, one of these like major Bass Pro Shops, right? I would probably look for some smaller, maybe D2C brands that, get this and they're willing to get a little more scrappy. And it actually could move the needle for them, right? Because for these, kind of big advertisers, like it doesn't matter to them. They barely want to work with, newsletters that have 100,000 subscribers, let alone, somebody who has zero. So it's going to take the right partner. This is definitely something that is going to take, quite a bit of work. But I think it's one of those things that, one, you could get really, really great subscribers. And it's like, it doesn't feel like you're competing with them at all. It's like you're just providing value. And then I think the other value add here is you find out very quickly whether you have this like product market fit and people are clicking on ads and you're building the right type of list. And I think a lot of people are like, we've talked about this, people waiting till 10,000 subscribers. And I think that's kind of like my threshold of like, you probably shouldn't start talking to advertisers until then. But I think this is like a roundabout way to be testing that all along in a really low stakes way. So I think it's kind of like let's call it an added bonus to getting your first 1,000 subscribers. Is like, you're actually like testing if you have a business here, which I think is just as important as growing a list, because you don't want to grow a 10,000 person list and be like, oh shit, I don't have a real business. I just wasted 6 months of my life hustling for these first 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I really love this idea. I want to add in. So one thing that I think a lot of people won't be aware of, and it's something that I didn't learn until like having sat inside and like talked growth and just like behind the scenes off the record with pretty much every 7 and 8 figure newsletter operator out there at this point. Not all of them, but a lot more than people realize did something like this in the early days. They don't talk about it, right? It's all about, referrals and quality of the product and just getting scrappy and doing things that don't scale. It's all about, people talk about that, right? It's all about the quality of the content. And all of those things are true, but a lot of them had help from some big partner that they don't ever talk about, who got them quietly the first couple of thousand, 10,000, maybe in some cases, I won't say their names, but like 100, 200,000 subscribers, completely like straight away, basically, right? That basically got them started. And I guess if we're boiling this down, right, basically what we're saying is like, hey, you want to write a newsletter about X? Just find somebody, a company, a person, whatever, who has a big audience of X already, and just find some reason for them to want to promote you. Find some way to like make it a win-win situation, right?
Yep.
I love it. I still am not allowed to share the name, unfortunately. But when I talked about this last year, I gave like 3 examples of brands that could be a good fit. And I was just like being random because like if you look at D2C, like consumer brands, they spend so much on Facebook ads to acquire subscribers. They have these huge lists. Like even small brands have like 500,000 people on their list, and they do nothing with them, editorially speaking. Yeah. No real newsletter other than like, hey, here's the new in, here's what's in sale, that kind of stuff. And I just chose one at random, an example of a dog company. And literally a couple of days later, one of my subscribers emailed me and was like, hey, so I actually reached out to that brand and they said yes, and we're getting something set up. And I'm not allowed to say the name, unfortunately, but like that is now a successful newsletter. I think they have something like 50, 60,000 subscribers, and they are doing, it is a profitable one person business, at least six figures in revenue.
Oh, there's only so many dog newsletters out there.
You'd
So
be surprised. You would,
yeah, I guess that's true. That's a pretty popular
yeah.
niche. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. Like it doesn't, I gave a pretty specific example, but I think it could be anything, right? Like you could just go partner with the brand and be like, hey, you guys get, 50% of the, the revenue over the first 2 years or something like that, right? If I get access to your list and like we try this out together and you get a certain percentage of the ad inventory, there's just a lot of ways. And I think
Yeah.
it's just thinking about like, yeah, who has a big list, who has distribution, who has trust, and who can you piggyback on,
Yeah.
to build your thing more quickly.
I
And like you're
mean,
providing them a lot of value, right? It's like you could go to them and be like, hey, I want to write killer content about dogs, right? Because I know, I was a dog trainer and I can provide this really great insight. It's like that's a huge value to them if they're trying to sell dog food, and their number one focus is, I guarantee, is not on creating dog food content, right? But you can provide that, and it's a huge value to them.
yeah. And I mean, I bet like there are so many ways you can make this a win-win, even without it being like actual like product brands or services. Like if someone came, you have like what, 100,000-ish like active subscribers on the water coolest. If someone came to you and was like, hey, I have a really great idea for a newsletter, uh, your audience is like a percentage of your audience would absolutely love it. It's not competitive in any way. I can go out and spend a bunch of money on Facebook ads or whatever to grow this, but I would
Yep.
really love to partner with you. I'd love to have your expertise on site. It's not going to be a lot of work for you. All I'm asking for is like, could you plug it a few times in the newsletter, and I will give you a revenue split or an equity stake or something in return for doing that. I mean, odds on, if it's not much work for you, like you're probably going to say yes, right? Because like,
Yeah.
why not share
Yeah.
something cool a few times?
My phone number is down here. Hopefully, yes, call me because I would love to do that.
Same here, right? Within the newsletter space or the creator space, like if you had something and you're like, again, with my audience size, like I'm not going to get you your first 50,000 subscribers, but I can get you your first like 2 or 5,000 subscribers for something that's really cool, like no problem at all, right? And that would,
Yeah.
I mean, and we're not talking about like giving up like 50% of the equity or something. Like in my case, like it would probably even be enough for you just to like, if you commit to recommending Sparkloop in like a welcome email, or you were like, yeah, I'll give you a shout out to subscribers once a month for like the next 12 months or something, like I would be totally cool with that. Like I would trade that in an instant for those first couple of thousand subscribers, because like why not, right? It's a win-win situation.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like asking someone a favor 101, but it's like just create more value for them. Make it just such a no-brainer. And I think it even goes back to your first point is, right, like making things easy, right? If someone comes to me with an idea and it takes a lot of work for me, I'm immediately gonna be like, no, I have so much other stuff going on. But if you come to me and give me an idea and be like, hey, you get upside and you basically have to do no work, that's almost a no-brainer, as long as you're not some sort of scam artist, right?
Yeah.
So like truly make it too good to be true for any of these brands that you're gonna try to work with.
Or also the other one it's like a sneaky one I would look at is Instagram and TikTok accounts that have huge followings, especially like if you're doing something in like you could be doing something like in the pet space, for example. That's another one. I saw someone literally today I was talking to. He has like a couple of Instagram pages with like a couple of million followers, in I think across cats and dogs, like across different pages for pet owners. He doesn't want to start a newsletter of his own. He doesn't want to write it. He hates that, right? He's all about
Right.
being like face on the camera. But he would love to partner with someone. And if you said to him like, hey, I've got something that you can promote and it's going to give you, I'll give you 5 or 10%, or I'll do a revenue split, or I'll even like, we'll work something out over time. Like he doesn't really have a lot to do with those subscribers. Like there's not a lot of ways that he can monetize those through Instagram. And he really doesn't have the expertise or like want to create a newsletter. So if you were to partner with someone like that, even in like a very, very minority stake, you are going to get a bunch of subscribers coming through. You have a top of funnel that's already built there that's going to work really well. That kind of thing, like those kind of opportunities, I think are super underrated, especially if you don't already, like if you're flexible with what the newsletter is going to be about, you don't have that idea yet. I think that's like it's like
Yeah.
if you know you want to start a restaurant, but you don't know what kind of restaurant you want to start, like this is like almost like just finding the perfect location, and there's like a queue of like hungry customers that want to pay you for it, and being like, okay, fine, I'll start that restaurant, versus like going around and trying to find like the perfect spot to start like the restaurant that you want to start.
It's funny you mentioned that. Probably like in 2 hours before we hopped on today, I actually DM'd somebody who is, they're like a photographer in the next town over, because I noticed the next town over does not actually have, and I'm not going to say it, it actually does not have a local newsletter. And so this photographer has this huge following. He just, I think it's a he, just goes around taking like pictures at events and all this stuff. It's awesome. He posts about what's going on in town. I DM'd him. I was like, let me make a newsletter for you. I'll split the revenue. You help me grow it. You have all this insight. We'll feature your photos, right? Things like that. It's just like that opportunity is kind of like living everywhere. It's just like you have to look for it and be willing to kind of put yourself out there.
Definitely. So. Yeah. And it's such a quick win to get those, like, I mean, you can get the first 1,000, but that could potentially be the first 100,000. I've seen people get more than 200,000 subscribers from that kind of partnership before.
Yes, and then crazy. You have to start hiding cash around town too. I see that didn't make the list.
It did not. Let's go to number 3, shall we?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you take this one. I think it's a little bit of cheating, but let's go for it.
Well, let's talk about it. So I think we agreed on 1 and 2. We agreed on 4 and 5. 3, I think, is where we have a little bit of a debate. It's also I think the only paid one on the list, right? So spoiler, we're just talking straight Meta ads, basically, to get your first 1,000 subscribers. So leave out the organic, just pure pay for play. Go for it. Pay Meta, get 1,000 subscribers by running ads. Your camp, no, right? You're a no-go on this one.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a boomer. I'm like too old school here. I just feel like you shouldn't pay for your first 1,000. You shouldn't pay to lose your virginity, right? Like you probably shouldn't pay for your first 1,000 subs. I just think it's important to like really find those people and have like these, I don't know, like one-on-one relationships. And I also think it's really important for you to like understand how to grow a newsletter other than just like paying for it. Because I think then at the beginning, it sets this precedent that you're just kind of building this arbitrage play, right? Like that's the way I look at, Meta ads is you're just kind of building this arbitrage. And I also think you need to go through those first 1,000 or however many to figure out how you should be telling Meta to find these people, right? Because you don't have a lookalike list you can use. You don't really know who these people are. So you might just be spending money to build the wrong list, which just sets you off on the right foot. So I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. I'm curious why you're okay with it.
I was always like 50-50 on this. And then when we had Gunnar home on the podcast and he was talking me through this, I've pivoted pretty hard into this being something that is like not something that everybody should do, but that for a group of people, like a couple of categories, a couple like specific times, this is probably, in at least a bunch of situations, hands down like the best and only way I think you want to go for the first 1,000.
What are the situations?
Well, let's get onto like the downsides and upsides first, and then we can come back and like understand why those situations might fit, right? So like what you're saying, I think is all true, right? Like it's very risky, right? You're paying for the subscribers up front. You may not necessarily, if you just pay for the subscriber, you haven't run the newsletter before, if you don't know exactly how you're going to monetize in the future, you don't know exactly who you're writing for yet, there is a good chance that you're just burning that money.
And to be fair, like Meta is going to find you subscribers.
Oh yeah,
but that doesn't mean you have a good newsletter, right? Those are two very separate things. Like Meta is so good, there's billions of people on it. They will find you somebody who is dumb enough or smart enough to sign up for it
at some price. Yeah, they absolutely will.
Yeah,
right? Whether you can do anything with them or not, that's a different question. But they will find you the people. The upside of Meta is, as you grow, it's going to at some point become, if you want to grow past a certain scale, it's going to become the only platform that's going to scale you that far. You're going to use LinkedIn as well. You can use Spark.
Yeah, but today we're talking about first 1,000.
I know. But I'm saying like at some point, if you want to keep going, Meta is going to become part of it, right? Like,
that's next week's. That's next.
It is. But that's the point, right? It's like that is the thing that is going to scale, right? So at some point, you're going to have to crack this. And so, what I think is, if you know exactly who your target audience is, right? Like if you know who you want to acquire, if you've got the confidence that your newsletter is good or that it doesn't matter whether the newsletter is good or bad because that's not what it's about. And if you have either a product or you're doing lead gen, so you're selling leads to some other provider, or you have a quiz that's going to tell you exactly whether that new subscriber is like the right subscriber or not, so that you can be pretty sure after you've paid Meta, like, is this going to work out for me, right? Like either yes, I've paid Meta and 10% of people are buying my product, or I've paid Meta and everybody who's signing up, I'm only paying $3 per subscriber for people who are self-identifying as marketing directors or who are going through and purchasing. They're clicking on the lead gen, and I'm making money for them, right? Um, if you are in that situation and that's the kind of newsletter you want to build, I think starting with anything other than Meta is a really bad idea because that's literally the only thing that really matters. Like the biggest risk you have, the biggest uncertainty to whether you're going to be able to build that newsletter into a profitable newsletter is not can you get the first 1,000 subscribers, because you don't make enough money from that, right? The real thing that matters is, hey, can I figure out a way to pay Meta X number of dollars and to make back X plus 1% or X plus 10% pretty much straight away, right? Or in the near future, and to have that certainty. So if that's the biggest risk, there's no point doing any of the other things, because like at least until you've tried out Meta to know whether it's going to be worth it in the long term, right? Like what's the point of getting to 1,000 subscribers organically and then finding out, oh shit, like I'm never going to be able to scale this, the maths doesn't work. So if that's like, if you're in the finance space, if you have an info product of some kind, that is how I would recommend
But
starting.
so my argument there would be like, I almost look at that as like an email marketing play. That's not necessarily a newsletter, right?
It depends, right? Like you're probably not getting people to start, like you're not attracting people with the newsletter. But if you look at like a Market Beat or something like that, right? Like that is a newsletter. There is no question, can Market Beat, like, do people want to read financial news, right? Is like, yes, they do. The question is, can we acquire subscribers profitably with like our funnel, right? So I think that's it. What I would even go as far as to say is like, one of the reasons that I actually don't like organic that much, like the traditional sort of like, oh, go and post on Twitter or be funny on LinkedIn or something like that. The challenge there, and I see this all the time, we get a bunch of, and it happens especially with creators, right? So like people first, personalities, they'll come to us
Mm-hmm.
at Sparkloop and they've grown a newsletter with like 5 or 10,000 subscribers, and they've done it organically, painfully through like post after post on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. And those subscribers love them. They buy their shit. It's amazing. And then like, right, I want to scale this and I want to use ads. I want to use Sparkloop. I want to like pay for growth, right? Um, and they say the same thing with Sparkloop and with Facebook ads. It's like, hey, we're getting these subscribers coming through, but they're not actually opening and clicking and buying our stuff as much, right? We can't get that to work. There must be some problem with Facebook ads and Sparkloop and everything else. And then we look and we go, okay, so what is different? Like, what's the difference between like a Morning Brew, a 1440, probably the Water Girls, like someone that can like scale paid acquisition, and these creators that can't. And I hate saying it to people, and I still haven't found the nice way to tell these creators it to their face. But the honest truth is, their newsletter isn't very good. People just really like them because they followed them online and feel like they know them. And the newsletter is just like, it happens to be the only, like, it's the only place they're putting the link where you can buy from them, right? But if it's not the newsletter, like the newsletter on its own is not good enough. You have to get into like, it's like they have to get into like the social ecosystem and listen to them and all this kind of stuff first. And
Yeah.
they have no funnel from the newsletter to social to get people to like them, to care enough to come back to the newsletter. So it fails for them. And that I think is the really big downside of organic, is that if you're really good at being funny on LinkedIn and Twitter and places, you can think that you've got a good newsletter when it's really bad.
It's funny. I'm actually seeing that with a consulting client. It is very hard. Like you can be very successful on social. Like that does not mean it's going to translate well to a newsletter for many reasons. Like it's the voice is hard to capture, and then also to your point about growing it through Meta or Sparkloop, it's like you have to consider like those people invested time and you built this like parasocial relationship with them on the internet on YouTube or whatever already. And now you're just asking people to sign up through, a web page or, landing page and then like you. It's just a very different relationship that you have with the people. And yeah, it does not compute with some folks. So I feel bad for you having to have that conversation.
It's okay. I'm trying to figure out the way. I'm delegating that at this point. Just putting the pain on
Yeah,
somebody else.
that's the easier way to do it. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Should we go on to number 4? What do we got there?
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing on the
Yeah,
meta
do
ads.
it.
The only thing I like about meta ads is something that you mentioned was you're eventually going to have to do it. So start learning them now, because there certainly is a learning curve. And at the beginning, it's probably going to make a whole lot of sense for you to run your own meta ads, because if you go and work with an agency, they're either, they have a big minimum, or right, you have to consider that on top of what you're paying them per subscriber, you also have to pay them either a percentage or just a flat fee. And so that just makes the cost per subscriber go up. So like if you get past that, 1,000 mark, 1,001 to 10,000, you're probably going to have to turn on some sort of paid at that point if you're looking for scale. And you're probably not going to have a ton of money coming in. So you're going to need to do some of these things on your own. So it probably is good practice to start finding that. But that's the only positive I can think of there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's if you know you're going to have to do it anyway, if that's your biggest uncertainty is, can I get subscribers? Like, can I make this profitable? Can I make the math work out? Then go for it. If you still have questions about like, what am I even going to sell people? Who is my ideal subscriber? Do I even enjoy writing the newsletter? Don't go waste a bunch of money on meta ads. Like in that situation, yeah, I wouldn't do it for sure.
All right, we're going to do a complete 180 here. This is like individual one-on-one hand-to-hand combat. So this one is actually kind of stemmed from John Wall Street Conversation. If you guys haven't listened to it, go listen to last week's pod. It was an awesome one with a good friend of mine, Corey Leff. This one is just basically individual outreach. I think, in his case, it's high net worth individuals. He's doing, sports team owners, so billionaires and billionaires. But I think you can do this with probably more in the B2B space. And I think to caveat here, the individual outreach, I think not on the individual outreach, on, if you're doing something in like B2B or ultra high net worth, I think you need to think, like we're saying first 1,000, it actually may be compressed a little bit, right? Like it may be actually first 100, because your readers are so valuable that like that, the first 1,000 for a consumer newsletter is actually, you really only need 100 people to really find out that you're onto something with a B2B. So that's my caveat there. But this one's very simple, right? It's literally reaching out. I would say LinkedIn DM is probably the best way to start. Have a link to your newsletter, tell them what value it's going to provide, maybe give them something, going back to your first point, like maybe some sort of like something super valuable, like, hey, I'd love for you to check out my newsletter. When you do check out my newsletter, I'm also going to send you this swipe file or this research that I compiled, something like that. So almost kind of hit them with a lead magnet as well. But I think this is something like you have access to all the most important people, in your industry just by having a LinkedIn account. And it costs whatever, $60 a month to have, the LinkedIn badge and to be able to cold DM people. So I would definitely go that route if I'm trying to build, a B2B newsletter. And you can even pose it as like, hey, you're a CFO of a great company. I would love to get your, your expertise on, or your advice on if you think this newsletter is valuable, to other CFOs. It'd be super helpful to me. I also attach, this great research that I did on CFO salaries, something like that you might find helpful. Thanks for your time. Your hit rate is probably going to be fairly low, but again, like I think the numbers are compressed here, and you only need, 100, 200 people to like really be onto something, and you're just going to get like completely invaluable content. And I think people are going to appreciate this because they just get junk in their inbox. So if you're truly providing value and you're truly an expert in your space, I think it's something that, is going to be great. And I think there's a couple of other ways you could do this, right? I've actually set this up. So on the LinkedIn side, I've set this up for clients before, and like you can automate this, right? There's tools that will go on and auto DM people in LinkedIn. You have to be careful you don't let it get out of hand and like, DMing the wrong people. I would keep an eye on it closely, but if you're trying to get very specific about who you want to DM on there are some really good tools that you can use it. It's like they're mostly recruiting tools, but you can repurpose them for this. And then I think the other way is you can do some cold outreach. You can use something like Apollo to go find a bunch of people that would be your core demographic and hit them with some cold emails. The two caveats there, I would say, one, it's very hard to get through firewalls when you're cold emailing people, especially at a company level, right? So if you're trying to get into their Outlook, it's going to be much harder. So I actually would recommend people go and look for somebody's Gmail account, right? So if you're on Apollo or something, not trying to hit them at their company email address, try to hit them at their Gmail account. It may feel like a little more personal, and you may have a better opportunity there. And then the other thing I would say on email deliverability is if you're cold emailing, and this is kind of, SDR 101, is I would set up a different domain. So if it was the water coolest, I would maybe set up like, readthewatercoolest.com, right? Instead of sending from my domain that I'm sending the email, because there is a chance, right, that if you get hit with enough spam, you have some domain reputation issues and you don't want to mess up your main domain, right? So I would just be careful of that. You're going to have mixed results. I would try it out. I think it's worth it if you have a truly valuable email, and maybe you can provide them something else that's valuable, like a lead magnet, survey data, something like that. What do you think about this idea?
I love it in like particular cases, right? Like I think this is going to become a really big thing. I've talked to a couple of people recently who have done this, and I've talked to them like in depth about like how they're doing it. And I think there's like a little bit of a playbook emerging, right? And so this is like I think this is again first couple of hundred, first thousand or so probably subscribers is where you're going depending on the size of your audience. And it's really only worth it if you're going after like a very high signal audience of like very specific people, decision makers, people that you really want to like
Yeah.
get close to.
Yeah, I
And
think it's like true like C-suite. I would never recommend like going after mid-level marketing manager, something like that. It's like you need scale there. Like I would be going after a C-suite or something, like
yeah, or like just a very like particular niche that you know is going to be like who you want to sell really expensive services to, or like where you know you
yep.
have a sponsor that really wants to reach those people, right? Like I think like you can go like CMOs of like SaaS companies or like VC backed SaaS companies, right? You can do like people who are building like viral apps or something, right? Like it doesn't have to be like a
Yep.
traditional like 500 like Fortune 500 CEOs or something, but I think you want to have like a very very particular niche in mind. And the playbook that I'm seeing work really well there is like, firstly, I think you have to make it an exclusive newsletter. Like it can't be something that you can just sign up to yourself and like stumble across it. It has to be invite
Mhm.
only, I think, at least in the early days. Um, I think you
That's
probably,
another good
yeah.
way to provide value in the LinkedIn
Yeah.
message, right? Be like, this is
Well,
an invite
it's
only.
exclusive, right? Like I think that's what you're like. If someone emails me and is like, "Hey, Louis, you are you lead a software company in the creator space. Do you want to sign up for my newsletter?" I'm going to go no. If you say to me, "Hey, Louis, I have this invite only newsletter. It's only for like the top couple of hundred leaders of software companies in the creator space. I'm just sharing like what's going on that all of us need to be aware of. I do it like 2 3 times a week. Can I add you to the list?" Right? So DM super high signal, like, oh shit, like the people like my competitors, my peer group is on this, and like I'm finally invited. Like, damn, I need to be on there pretty quick because like apparently everyone else is reading this. Great, okay, I'm
Yeah,
definitely going to say yes.
shout out Nathan May for running this playbook perfectly.
Yeah, he does this really well. Yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of people who've been doing this over like the last couple of years. There's I'm blanking on the name now. There's a guy who actually built like $1 million newsletter off this in like a very weird specific niche a couple of years ago. Um, a lot of them in the sports niches as well. And then I think the other thing that you want to do is you don't want to ask someone to go and subscribe. You want to ask them like, "Hey, can I add you to the list?" Right, and then they can just drop their email address there, and you can go and add them, rather than like making them go and do like the subscription flow, because that also makes them feel like like anyone can subscribe, like they can just go find the landing page, right? Like it has to be like a um, an invite only thing. I think at least in the beginning, it has to be exclusive.
As you were saying that, I was thinking something. Do you think it's creepy to have their email address and say, "Hey, is this your email address? Can I drop you into the list?"
No, because most people know that you can figure it out, or like they'll have it to be easily
Right.
figure outable. And so I
I'm
would
just
just be
thinking
like,
like
is this the best email address for you? Yeah.
right, like least friction. And I also think that shows that you kind of like went out and did some research, and this is not just something you're blasting out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another
I think that could work.
I was say another thing on this that I really like that Corey shared in that interview with us a couple of weeks ago is this idea of like featuring them, right, and making them be like, I wonder what they've said about me, or like I wonder how they've talked about me. Like, is it something that I'm going to want to share? And also getting that share right. And I think that's another big thing that we want to talk about is like we can maybe debate like the extent to which referral programs still work nowadays. I am convinced that for this model, the way to make this scale from hundreds to thousands and tens of thousands of subscribers that are still insanely high quality is a reverse referral program, like like a limited number of invites, right? So you go, hey,
Yeah.
great, you're in. Just so you know, you have one invite. I trust you to invite one really smart person who should be in this space as well. You have 7 days to do it, then the invite's going to expire. Who do you want to invite? Most people are going to take you up on that because what is more like high signal than being able to go to someone else and be like, hey, so I was invited to this group of the 100 best people like us. You're not already in it? Oh, weird. Like, I wonder why I got invited before you. That's kind of weird. But anyway, like, you can have my invite, right? I'll give you my one invite that I was allowed.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a
definitely
lot
gonna
of
work.
apps who they use that,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's yeah. Was it like during COVID? What was the one? It was like House Party, I want to say.
That's supposed to do that as
There
well.
were
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
There's a
And
bunch
you were
that
like,
do that.
oh, could
Yeah.
I get an invite? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. It creates this whole kind of like weird viral loop, but
Yeah. And you can do
it's
like, you
all
can
for the
do
company.
regular drops, right? If you want to get more people like invite, you can be like, okay, like, here is another one today, next 24 hours, you can invite one other person. Um, and you can be like, hey, like if you want to invite, you can even like DM those people, right? If you've got the CEO, I think this is something that Corey said that he did, right? You can be like, hey, uh, if you want to send me the list of like the 5 execs on your team that you think should also be signed up, I'll sneak them in. It's fine. Like, don't tell other people that I'm doing this, but I'll go and do this for you, right? And then you
Yep,
get bingo, all of those 5, right? You get the next 10 or whatever it is from that like inside of that company.
I like that one. I think it works. Could work super well. Definitely not easy, and I think the downside there, right, is like if you're doing that and you're trying to scale a list, right, like it's going to be a grind, right? But I think there's definitely some tools out there, like I mentioned, kind of you can like repurpose some of the recruiting tools on LinkedIn. You could obviously use like an Apollo or something on, if you're going to do it via email, or like just hire a VA or something to be doing this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and
But
I mean it's
I think
it's
I
it's
think
not that many, right? Like I think you're going to get a really high opt-in rate. I think you're going to get 75% opt-in rates on this, honestly. And so if you think what that means if you want to add 1,000 subscribers, you give everyone one invite and then a second invite, and you get at least a 50% uptake on that. Which means to get 1,000 subscribers, you only need to get 500 yourself. That's literally emailing 15 people a day for a month and a half, and you have DMing 15 people a day for a month and a half, and you have your 1,000 subscribers from that. It's really like considering the value of those subscribers that each of those people, if you're building that kind of newsletter, they should be able and willing to spend at least $1,000 to $10,000 with you every year, no problem, no questions asked. That is an insane like if I were doing sales now, I would do this instead of doing sales. Like I would just like give up on my quota for the first couple of months, do this, and then after a couple of months, you are going to be able to sell to those people like crazy. I think like if a sales like if someone came to me and was like wanted to be in a sales role at Spark Loop and was like, so I'm going to do this, I would be like, yes, you were hired today. Come do this. That's amazing.
I think the major caveat is like you actually have to know what the fuck you're talking about. I think there's going to be some people who are listening to this and say, I'm going to go try this with my AI created newsletter about, whatever, being a lawyer in New York City, right? It's like, that is not going to work, because I can tell you, I work with a lot of B2B newsletters, and it's so immediately clear when you read one that is good versus like, and somebody who's like in the industry and one that is bad. And people can sniff out that bullshit if they live and breathe that, and they have for their entire life, and they've gone to a senior level. It's going to be so clear to them that it's not great content. So yes, I think this is a great idea, but I think it's a great idea for people who have a great newsletter, a great idea. And I think we'll close this one on be like, literally just go listen to the Corey episode, Corey John Wall Street episode, because I think he just like checked every box along the way and like built this really great product that was super valuable to the people in his niche.
Yeah, I totally agree. The one last thing I'll say on that real quick is like, I think there is a window of time, like you said, where this is going to work because I think a bunch more people are going to start doing it. And kind of like with referral programs, if you're the first referral program in a newsletter that someone ever sees, you're going to get a bunch of referrals. By the time, as like a CEO, by the time 50 people have DM'd you with basically the same message saying, hey, sign up to my high signal newsletter, it's only 100 people, you're like, yeah,
Yep.
okay, I get this. This is nonsense. This is played out. We have to go and do something else to get those people on. So you definitely like, if you're going to do this in like the next 3 months because it is, I think it has the potential to get tapped out pretty quickly.
Next 3 months. Do it this weekend. Well, actually, don't. It's a long weekend. When we're recording this, it's a long weekend in the US. So wait until next Tuesday.
Cool. Should we hit number 5?
Should we get into the last one here?
Yeah, let's do it. The last one is organic as well. And it's something we've actually talked about on the podcast a couple of times before, right? So I think the best example of this that we've seen so far still is Millie Tomati with her Generalist World.
Are you getting paid by her?
I should be. I mean, I've sent her.
I think you've mentioned her on at least 30. I'm going to ask AI probably 33% of our podcast.
Yeah, when I see a good example that everyone else should be copying, like I'm going to shout about this until everyone's doing it, and then I'm going to shout about something else, right? So,
and then you're going to say you should stop. Then we're going to say you should stop doing this because it's played out.
Yes. Well, at some point the algorithms will change, right? At some point this won't work, and then we'll have to go to something else. And like that's the fun of newsletters, right? That's why you have to like keep up with the space, and you can't just go, okay, I'll copy what Morning Brew did because what Morning Brew did does not work anymore. What works today for Generalist World and Millie is not going to be what's going to work in 5 years, right? So I guess just to get back into it for people who didn't see it, basically the concept is if you can create interesting, I shouldn't say interesting, if you can create entertaining, engaging short form video content on Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, maybe even LinkedIn potentially, if you can do that, and then point people to your newsletter in some way, give them something valuable that takes them off platform, you are going to get a shit ton of subscribers every day. I think Generalist World, Millie's newsletter, was getting like 500 subscribers from these TikToks, and she was posting like one a day, every day, which is just crazy, right? And these are not high production quality edited things. Like they're smartly written, they're well performed to camera, but like it's an iPhone camera person talking head talking to it, right? And literally the whole playbook is like call out the niche exact audience that you're looking for. So everyone else scrolls past or swipes past, your audience stays and is curious. Give them something really interesting, not the newsletter. Give them a quiz, give them a free tool, give them something like crazy intriguing that they can go and look up in their browser. Give it a domain name like Millie did, right? So she used generalistquiz.com, something that's because you can't click links, especially in TikTok. Just give them like a really simple browser link, browser like URL that they can go type in. And then just when people go and take the quiz or when they go and get whatever the freebie is, just keep those email addresses and put them into the newsletter, right? And I love this.
I know you love it, and I think the thing that I like most about it, and I think the unlock, and I hadn't really thought about it until this is, and I'm always trying to look for like how do you take the friction out of things, and I love the idea of having the unique URL that's like super simple, right? Because that's such a point of friction on any social media, right? And there's other ways to do that. You can use like a mini chat or something that's like a message, then it DMs you, but it's still like some friction. And I love this because you could also have a lot of fun with it, right? It's like it doesn't need to be generalistworld.com. It could be like, some joke in the generalist world, or I could do a lot of ridiculous things with the water coolest if I was doing this. So I think like just to harp on like that's really, really important to like making this all work. And like I would probably put a lot of the emphasis on like that's why this was, successful, because she found a way to lower the friction exponentially versus like everyone else who says link in bio, right? It's just a very different experience.
Yeah. And the just to add on to this, like I didn't add this in as like an official one of the 5 strategies, because it's one that requires an element of luck, right? It's not guaranteed. But I think one of the most interesting ways, piggybacking off this, that newsletters are going to grow in the future is doing what consumer apps are doing right now on TikTok and Instagram, and basically just getting a bunch of human or AI generated like reviews and content, UGC,
Mhm.
and getting them to talk about your newsletter. And if you pay 50 or 100 different accounts to post like 3 or 4 videos each about it, 1 or 2 of those are almost guaranteed to go pretty much viral and are going to get you a bunch of subscribers. The average one's going to get you like 1 subscriber, but a couple of them are going to get you thousands of subscribers. And that, I think, is like hugely powerful. It costs a bit more money. It's going to cost you, I mean, realistically, to do this at scale. Like if you want to get 50,000, 100,000 subscribers from this, it's going to cost you 5 figures at least to do this.
Yeah.
But that is like such an underrated hack, I think, in the newsletter space to get like those subscribers with like very little actual work for yourself.
And I mean, there, to your point, like there are agencies that literally just do this, and I believe there's actually a TikTok program like that you can, like TikTok has people that will do this for you, right? So like you can go through them to find this. So yeah, there are 100% ways to kind of scale this. I love this idea, and I love kind of what you pointed out at the last part was looking at what like D2C, what people are doing now, and it's like I think it's a good idea to be looking at tons of other things, like what else is happening on the internet that you could just steal their idea.
Yeah.
And then I think the last point here, I think you mentioned that you don't want to put it on here because it's like luck, right? And I get it, like virality. I truly think, I'm more of a newsletter guy than a social guy, but I kind of, see a lot of social stuff and hear about it. I truly think that, especially on TikTok, things are becoming, it's a lot less about like how big your account is, like, all these other things.
Yeah.
It truly comes down to like just creating really good content. And I don't think that that's luck, right? Like if you create good content enough, it's going to go into the algorithm, and the algorithm is going to reward you eventually. So yeah, it might not be like an immediate, like if you do this, this happens. It might be like you have to do that, and then that happens. But if you're actually creating good content, it's going to happen for you, and you're going to have one of these milli videos, and I don't mean $1 million, but one of these Milli Tipalti videos, generalist world, like they're going to hit eventually.
Yeah, I think so. If you're good at creating videos, right? And like, obviously, there's a bunch of people like who, if you just don't want to create videos, it's not for you. I mean, you can do UGC stuff, you can do AI generated. Like the Rundown has done a bunch of like subscriber growth off like completely AI generated using HeyGen videos, like that are organic, not organic and paid, but also organic. I think there's so many, like even in like if you take like a local newsletter, right? You can just do something like this. You can do the quiz, like how well, all the BuzzFeed stuff. How well do you know the town that you're in, right? You can do the giveaway stuff we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where you go, okay, like you show the video of this one person who's eating for free because they found the golden, like the $100 bill in their meal, and you can just be like, look, you want to get it next time? Go here, sign up for the $100, whatever it is, Montauk challenge or something, right? Like there's so many different ways you can do that and just get in front of the right people you want. And it does not cost a lot. It doesn't take that much effort. It just requires you to be, I guess, willing to go in front of camera and sort of like comfortable putting yourself out there. Like if no one signs up to your Facebook ads, you don't really feel rejected. You just feel annoyed that you wasted money. If no one likes your videos and watches them, like it hurts more, right? So like I get why people are a little bit unwilling to do this, but I mean the potential is there, right? Like it's worth just like taking the jump and doing this.
I think you have to do things that I wouldn't say don't scale, but are hard to scale, right? And I think a lot of these kind of fall into that category. Obviously, the meta ads, I think, is like the easy kind of set it and forget it. Maybe not set and forget it, but like you talked about the lead magnet and rec swaps, right? Like that takes a lot of reach out, having conversations, making inroads with people, and then actually creating something valuable. Partners for distribution, right? Same thing. It's like you have to reach out to these brands, you have to have some sales skills. And so I think that's what I keep coming back to is like, do some of this stuff that like doesn't scale. And I think you're going to get such a better feel for what your audience wants, like who's in your, in your niche, kind of find the content market fit. And then I think my final takeaway, right, is like, do these things like as soon as possible. Don't just put content out there and let it sit and hope people are going to come to you, because I've done that with projects, and you just kind of put things out there and you're like, well, my content is killer, right? Like the worst thing is to be sitting in your basement like I am, writing a newsletter that goes to like 25 people and half of them are in your bloodline. So I would say like get on these things as soon as possible and like get your next 1,000 subscribers, if nothing else for your mental health, to be like, I'm okay, this thing is great and I want to keep going. Because there's, what is the stat? I don't know what the stat is for newsletters, but the stat for podcasts, like 90% of podcasts don't get past episode 3. Luckily, we've gotten there, but I'm sure the number of abandoned newsletters is appalling on Beehive, and that's because like it is tough. So like, just do these things. Some of them are going to suck a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of work, but it'll be worth it if you find like the right people for your list.
Oh yeah, I mean, like doing any of these things, like whichever one you pick that's right for you, and maybe there's like 2 or 3, and you can just choose between them based on like your situation and what you enjoy more. Like, get to the 1,000 subscribers, blow past it, start making some money, feel confident, like feel energized, feel like what you're doing actually matters. Like, there is nothing worse than those people. And I feel so sorry for them who are like 18 months, 2 years in, and they're at like 321 subscribers. They're adding like 5 a week because they're like posting again and again, like subscribe on Twitter and LinkedIn. It's like, why are you inflicting this pain on yourself? It's not like some sort of like noble idea, right? Like there's nothing like, you're not better in some way by doing this. Like you're just like handicapping yourself. Like it's not a good, like I just feel bad for them, right? Like make some, if you're doing this as a business rather than as something that's just supposed to be fun, like just brute force it, get to the place where you are actually making money, where you have an audience, where it matters, where you're motivated, like you said, and then go from there.
And even if you are doing it for fun, go do it on like Substack or something, which at least will help you grow a little bit, because they'll help push the better content to the top in theory. So at least you'll get some referrals that way.
Cool. Let's wrap it.
Awesome. But yeah, I think that's it. We got for the first ever ways to get 1,000 subscriber draft that's ever been done in the newsletter space.
Totally unique content. I'm sure no one's ever thought of this idea before, right? It's the idea.
Yeah, absolutely not. All right. Awesome, guys. Well, we appreciate you joining us in Letterland, and we will see you next week.